Официально другая, а во-вторых, мы не добиваемся капитуляции со стороны Украины. Много русского солдата, понимаешь?
I'll be discussing the history of the conflict, the events leading up to it, the main actors involved, a look at potential resolutions, and a summary of the impacts felt by both sides. This is truly a complex issue, one that can't be summed up in one short video, but I'm going to do my best to give you the key points that have caused and will continue to shape the situation going forward. If you want to know the true story of what's happening in the Ukraine, watch this video. In 2014, tensions between Ukraine and Russia began to worsen as Ukraine decided to pursue closer relations with the European Union instead of maintaining its strong ties with Russia. In response, Russia sought to keep Ukraine in its orbit and sent troops to Crimea, a Ukrainian territory, in an effort to annex it. This sparked a conflict between the two countries that persists to this day. As a result of this situation, more than 12,000 people have been killed in the war, and millions more have been displaced from their homes. The conflict has exacerbated existing economic and political turmoil in the region, with both sides continuing to call for a resolution. The ongoing struggle has highlighted how Russia wields its influence in the region, while also demonstrating Ukraine's determination to resist Russian aggression. In March of 2014, Russian forces began to enter eastern Ukraine in a move that resulted in significant disruption of the region's communications, trade, and infrastructure. The majority of the troops were positioned in cities along the Russian-Ukraine border and in the industrial heartland of eastern Ukraine. This paramilitary-style invasion marked the beginning of a multi-year conflict between the Ukrainian government and pro-Russian separatists. The conflict has been characterized by a series of territorial land grabs and proxy wars, with both sides accusing the other of committing human rights violations. Throughout the conflict, the escalation of violence has continued to threaten the safety of civilians in the region. In addition to the universal upheaval, the colonization of the Ukrainian economy and political system has been severely impacted, resulting in thousands of displaced people and intense economic sanctions. The United Nations and other world powers have called for de-escalation in the region but have been unable to bring about a lasting peace. As of 2021, the conflict remains unresolved. April of 2014, the Russian-backed separatist campaign against Ukrainian sovereignty began in earnest, with separatists in the east of the country widely targeting Ukrainian forces and loyalists. This campaign of aggression was prompted by the ongoing Ukrainian Euromaidan Revolution, a popular uprising that had implemented a pro-Western, pro-democracy government instead of the pro-Russian regime that had preceded it. The separatists and their Russian backers responded by launching a series of land grabs, with armed and well-supplied rebels seizing control of key cities, towns, and regions in the east. This caused numerous challenges for the Ukrainian forces and loyalists, as they were greatly outnumbered and outgunned by the rebels. In addition, Russian intelligence provided the separatists with supplies and weapons, as well as much-needed military expertise. The volatility of the situation was exacerbated by the presence of Russian forces in the region. Although Moscow officially denied any military presence, it was widely believed that the Russian army had, in fact, deployed troops to provide assistance to the separatists in the region. The separatist success in eastern Ukraine ultimately led to the start of the war in Donbass, a conflict that continues today. Despite numerous UN-led ceasefire attempts, tens of thousands of Ukrainian soldiers and civilians have lost their lives, while many hundreds of thousands more have been displaced from their homes. In June 2014, tensions between Ukraine and Russia reached a dangerous tipping point. Following the annexation of Crimea by the Russian Federation, the Ukrainian government deployed large contingents of military personnel and equipment to its eastern borders in preparation for a possible full-scale invasion by the neighboring country. The deployment was largely in reaction to increasing reports of Russian military buildup in the region. The escalation of military activity on both sides created a volatile situation that threatened to boil over into a full-scale war. International pressure eventually pushed both parties to the negotiation table and resulted in a ceasefire agreement that was signed in September of that year. Despite the signed ceasefire, tensions between the two countries remain high and continue to pose a threat to international peace and order. In August 2014, The previously agreed-upon ceasefire between Ukrainian government forces and pro-Russian separatists broke down, leading to an increase in violent armed tensions. Clashes and bombardments repeatedly took place as both sides sought to gain and maintain control of major cities. In response to the actions of the separatists, Ukrainian forces launched a counter-offensive in an attempt to retake cities located within separatist-controlled areas. This goal was ultimately achieved, as the Ukrainian government forces were able to reclaim control of many major cities during that period, leaving the situation between the two sides in a state of relative stability by the end of the year. The agreement was signed on the 15th of January, 2015 in Minsk, Belarus, between Ukrainian government and representatives from the separatist-held regions, after months of negotiations and numerous failed attempts. The agreement set out all aspects of the settlement and meant that both sides would no longer use military force to achieve their political objectives. Under the agreement, both parties agreed to cease fire, withdraw heavy weapons from the combat area, and establish a demilitarized zone by the end of the year. The agreement also included a range of measures to improve the humanitarian situation in the conflict zones and release prisoners of war on both sides. It also established a framework for respect of human rights, the rule of law, and the institutions of government in the separatist-held territories. Though the ceasefire was accepted by both parties, it was never completely implemented, as sporadic fighting and violence continued in some parts of the region. This prompted the international community to increase its presence in eastern Ukraine in order to monitor the situation and to help maintain peace and security. In April 2015, increasing tensions in the Russian-speaking region of Ukraine had led to a conflict between Ukrainian forces and pro-Russian separatists. In response to the ongoing violence, the Ukraine government passed legislation for the creation of an autonomous region in the east, referred to as the self-proclaimed People's Republic of Donetsk, PRD. This legislation created a separate legal system, allowing greater autonomy for the East's citizens. While the government claimed that the autonomous region would improve the lives of those living in the region, it was met with criticism from the Ukrainian people, who saw it as a misguided concession to the separatists. In the following months, the PRD declared its independence from Ukraine, further complicating the conflict. Despite a series of United Nations ceasefire agreements, the conflict in Ukraine continues to this day. The announcement in October 2015 by Ukraine that it was arming its forces in the east was seen as a much-needed step in the country's bid to secure its sovereignty and ultimately take back the regions currently under separatist control. The move also angered Russian President Vladimir Putin, who continued to deny any involvement in the separatist effort. Ukraine called for international support to assist in its mission to restore sovereignty in the region and ensure the well-being and protection of its citizens in the east. The arming of its forces was an integral part of this process, as it provided Ukrainian forces with much-needed weapons and equipment to protect themselves and fight the separatist forces. Several leaders around the world have expressed their support of Ukraine's decision and have praised it for taking a determined stance in the conflict. In March 2016, negotiations between Ukraine and Russia that were designed to resolve the ongoing Ukrainian-Russian war broke down. This breakdown led to an intensification of fighting in eastern Ukraine, where the war had been taking place since 2014. The negotiations had been organized by the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE, and the so-called Trilateral Contact Group, TCG. The primary principles of the negotiations had been to achieve a stable ceasefire and to implement OSCE security measures in the contested areas of Donbas in eastern Ukraine. However, the negotiations broke down when the parties failed to reach a substantive agreement. This prompted further fighting between the Ukrainian military and Russian-backed separatists. In response, the Ukrainian government announced a substantial increase in defense spending, which was intended to strengthen the country's ability to fend off further attacks. The breakdown in negotiations was concerning for the international community. In an effort to reduce tensions between the two countries, several world leaders, including German Chancellor Angela Merkel and French President François Hollande, appealed to both sides to return to the negotiating table. However, as of 2021, the war continues, and negotiations have yet to resume. November 2016 marked a major turning point in the long-standing war in Ukraine. After 2 years of ongoing violence in the east of the country, the Ukrainian army was finally able to gain control of separatist-held regions and successfully repel the remaining rebels. This victory was the result of an intense effort by both Ukrainian forces, backed by allies and volunteers, as well as by all those who took part in numerous peace initiatives. Despite this success, the war still affected the lives of hundreds of Ukrainians in a number of ways. Thousands of people were left displaced due to the conflict, and the toll on infrastructure, hospitals, schools, and other facilities has been substantial. The broken lives and dreams of many have yet to heal. On the other hand, the Ukrainian government has made an effort to rebuild and provide a safe environment for its citizens in cities such as Donetsk and Luhansk. Though the Ukrainian victory over the separatists is a welcome sign of progress, the war continues to have an effect on the region and its people. The heartbreaking stories of lost lives, hardship, and displacement will never be forgotten, and the path to long-term peace and stability remains turbulent. This YouTube video explored the top 10 things about the Ukraine-Russian war and the struggles that have led up to the current conflict. It's clear the war will continue to affect this region deeply, and the stakes are higher than ever.